All right. Welcome back to the randInt podcast with Raffy and Chandra. Huzzah!
Float, float, nautical theme music.
I think it'll just be cheer, but anyway. This one's going to be a bit delayed just because it was meant to be out on Friday and we're recording it now.
Oops.
That being
There were good reasons for this.
Yeah, exactly. So I hear you're finally done with your boat adventures. It was terrible, so you're never going to do that again.
Yeah, definitely not. ...
All right. Well, then this sounds like
people that missed the last episode.
Yeah.
Basically, I've been living on a boat for the last month, learning how to sail.
Why would you do this? Shark-infested waters, sea snakes.
Don't forget the jellyfish.
Yeah, jellyfish.
And there's sun trying to make brown people even browner. We can't have that.
What will Fair and Lovely do?
Exactly. Though it turned out the solution for jellyfish also solves that. A wetsuit.
Oh, okay. Were there lots of jellyfish?
No, I think I saw one, a little one, but apparently the season for jellyfish is a bit late this year. So for context, I was in the Whitsundays in Queensland and basically was there on a boat for the entire of October. And basically just chartered a boat where you just get a boat and that's about it. And you fill it up with people and go sailing.
I think the original plan was you invited all these friends, but then basically we were all in lockdown.
Yeah, so I was like, great, everybody from Melbourne can come, and then had like people lined up and planned, and then it's like, well, that's not going to happen. So I had the choice between just canceling the trip, but realistically, I was like, oh, September, October is the best time to go sailing there. And I was a bit impatient, didn't want to wait till next September, October. So I was like, oh, well, let's just go and find random people that want to come along. So I went on some sailing groups and was like, hey, anybody want to come and sail? Bring a skill / teach how to sail. And it worked out really well. Had a great mix of people. And from sailing experience perspective, this was not planned, but it worked out really well. For the first little bit, there was like this old dude who used to own a boat and sail around that area specifically as well. So he's teaching heaps. The next person, he was also sort of been out a few times sailing, but also learning. And he'd borrowed a book from the library on sailing. Right. So, well, which is important because there's not a lot of reception. So normally you can just YouTube and learn, but reception is a problem. So it was great. Basically, we're like, all right, cool. Let's work out how to sail. And it's good because after, got the basics down pat after the first little bit. And then it's like, okay, it's windy in this way. Let's try a bit of this. Nope, the boat's going backwards. Let's try something else instead.
Yeah.
So trial and error worked quite well.
Why did the first guy sell his boat?
I think he was just getting a bit older and like hard to manage, etc. So he was like, yeah, time to move on from that.
Yeah, I told you, boat life is terrible.
Yeah, well, there's many sayings around things like, boats are just a hole in the ocean to throw your money and things like this.
So clearly not enjoyable, never doing it again. Okay, so we can just move on.
Yeah, definitely not. I think one of the surprising the main thing I wanted to go is to go learn how to sail and also see what's it like to live on a boat for a month. So both of those achievement, yes, tick tick, and that it was awesome. But the surprising thing was the having a series of random people on board. For example, when I was first on the boat, tried going snorkeling off the back of the boat and stuff, but can't say I was the strongest swimmer. And also half the time, like there's a snorkeling mask that they give you on the boat. So wearing that, but half the time it kept filling up every like 2 seconds. I have to keep emptying out my mask. And then when you dive down, it's pushing on my forehead and it was really uncomfortable. But one of the guests that joined, she was a snorkeling instructor and had also worked on mega yachts and things, but gave some really good tips. It was like, one, go to a place, get a different thing, and, this style, blah, blah, blah. And had some really good tips. And so by the end of the trip, snorkeling like 2 hours a day, and it was great. Just jump off the back of the boat, just like, oh, that looks good, and then just hanging around, snorkeling, swimming around all day. and it was amazing. So just having a random group of people who had different things that they were into was surprisingly awesome.
Have you never done backpacking?
Nope, not a backpacker.
Okay, because this is like the joy of, say, like earlier trips to, where were we, in Nepal? Like I went on an exchange with two of our other friends, and there is a, because we are going to be there for 6 weeks, we found this guest house that's run by a GP over there, and a lot of medical exchange people go there. And so we basically just, there was the three of us. So we just hired the small bedroom. There was just 3 beds. And it was basically our luggage and our 3 beds was it. And there was like a chest of drawers to put stuff into. And that was our house for the month. And they had like a caretaker lady who you could bring, if you brought shopping, she would cook for you. I'm like, oh, sweet. And she'd make you tea. So I'm like, oh, this is perfect. But every room had random people. So we were from Australia. So randomly, one of the other people there was one of our other friends' high school friend from Rockhampton. Like randomly did not organize, but he just happened to be there.
This sounds like a randInt kind of event.
It was a very randInt event. And the other guests were these journalists from Singapore. And then not in our guest house, but one of the other ones was this guy who was a US medical student that I still keep in touch with to this day. And then the other rooms, they had more sort of frequent travelers. So almost every second, third night that you'd go to the common, like the kitchen, and people would be cooking and you just end up chatting. And then, they're like photographers came through. Somehow we ended up finding, it was like a friend of someone who was visiting. It was an Australian couple who went to Nepal to help out at some charity and ended up adopting a kid, but it was going to be too hard to come back to Australia with them because the paperwork wasn't right. And so they were like, okay, we'll hang around and do some odd jobs. And their odd jobs became, they just basically were copying like Australian cafe designs and just telling them how to do it. And because labor is cheap, they ended up becoming like known for their designs. So they started helping that out. But then they got enough money to buy and build their cafe. So it was like the only place where you could actually get a proper coffee in Kathmandu.
Nice.
So there was the, and
wait, were they from Melbourne?
Yes, they were.
There you go. Checks out.
Yeah,
checked out.
So they shipped one of the very first coffee machines to Nepal. Supposedly, like their customs officer came going, "What is this?" Because they'd never seen one before. Yeah, so
it's not used for making drugs or bombs. Well, actually, technically, he's used for making drugs.
Yeah,
really.
So it's like, this is the thing. What you experienced is like the joy of backpack, like good joys, because the other bad part is when you have shared bathrooms and whatnot, things get horribly messy. But yeah, so that was in sort of, so I've done this experiment a few years ago where I went to Singapore and I stayed at a backpackers, a medium range, like, 4-star hotel and like sweet ass Marina Bay Sands. And basically hated the middle of the range thing because it was just like nothing good. There was nothing good about it. It was like, whereas the backpackers was cheap, but it had a view of Marina Bay Sands. Like it was like in the perfect location. And so you had boat key, you had like these boats going by, right? And people walking around, and the veranda looked onto line of trees, a few buildings, and then Marina Bay Sands. And they had free coffee. So I just sit in the balcony and I was studying for exams. So I just study and go for a walk. And then the middle hotel was just crap. There was no good views. The room was a bit cramped, wasn't really anything. And then Marina Bay Sands was amazing because it's Marina Bay Sands. Like the room's massive and all that. But the annoying thing is, if you're staying in the premier location, you can never see the premier location. So everything else, you're looking down going, yeah, but I want to look at the Marina. I mean it.
It's almost like you need a big selfie stick.
Yeah. So the ultimate thing I came away from that was either go for sort of backpacky stuff where you can at least meet people, or the view's nicer, there's some uniquely something that you really want, but it doesn't have to be pricey, or just go for the flashy one that has like the premier experience. But the in-betweens, I was just like, I don't know, I don't think I can do that. But my only requirement was the backpackers have to have your own bathroom, or at least like a ratio that's reasonable.
Well, it sounds like what you need is, well, it was interesting on the boat, basically, because there's 2 bedrooms on it, basically, or berths in boating terms. There was 1 bathroom, but the second boat, which I only got for 2 nights, that was like a crazy ass boat, but essentially it's what you call a catamaran. So it's got two different hulls. So some boats are monohulls where they've got one big hull, and it's, if you think sailing boat, that's probably what you imagine. And then there's the catamarans, which have two hulls. In this particular boat, one of the hulls is the owner's suite.
Oh,
And so normally the back corner is one bedroom, the front corner is one bedroom. But in the owner's suite, what they do is they change it so the back corner is your bedroom, and then you have the entire corridor and everything. And the front corner is a separate bathroom and shower, full size, the size of a bedroom. So it's massive.
damn.
And so that one was really good. It was very different. Felt like basically the difference in the two would be driving a caravan versus driving a sports car. One was way more fun. The monohull was heaps more fun to sail.
Oh, right.
Imagine trying to, live in, and then also you got to live in the sports car when you get to the destination.
Right.
Whereas the caravan, a lot less fun to take from place to place. But when you get there, you've got a caravan.
Yeah, fair enough. I didn't even think of that. I just assumed because your first one didn't look like, it was small, but it didn't look tiny. But I suppose if you compare it to having your own, essentially some mono hull stuck to one side, then it's like private and also nice.
Yeah, the funny thing is, like on the small boat, which I was on for the whole month, it didn't seem to be too much of a problem or anything. But I can see how, like, if you're on it for an extended period of time, it could be annoying, because it was great, perfect weather. So what happens is you basically are sitting on the back outside area of the boat pretty much 90% of the time, and you just go down into the boat to cook and then bring your food back out and to sleep. But otherwise you spend your whole time outside, which is great if it's good weather. But when it rains, you're like, oh, you're inside. It's a bit depressing. You're like, oh, I'll just go to sleep. Whereas in the other boat, it's literally like an apartment. So you can find a nice place to hang out. It's like, oh, do you want to stay in the inside area or the front windy area or up the top or down in your bedroom? There's many places to go.
Like a house.
Yeah.
All right, so hurry up and buy one so I can come visit.
Well, that's the decision for this month. To do a round the world trip or not. If you have suggestions, let me know.
Yeah, actually, vote for it via voice message.
Yeah, exactly. Voice message vote will win.
Oh, actually, okay, on that note, let's segue to what's the update on the voice message challenge. So just as a refresher, someone left us a voice message. Chandra took up the mantle to deal with a slightly used and worse for wear iPhone. What are we up to?
Well, the iPhone has just arrived as of last week.
Okay.
And now that I'm back on land, the plan is I'm going to go find how to get this one fixed up. I'm going to have a bit of a fiddle and take it apart and work out what needs to be done to get it fixed up. And that's going to be the plan now. Okay. Working on fixing up stage. Next episode, I'll let you know what the damage is, what they've done to this poor phone, and what needs to be done to revive it.
I've seen photos of this. I mean, you can see the charging coils and like the NFC coils. I'm like, a lot has happened. It has lived a varied life.
Had a tough life. So what about you? What have you been up to?
Since the last time, I think, okay, so my highlight for the day. So I've been learning Python for the last little while, and like I'm still on a high over this. This is for anyone who knows anything about programming, it's like the most simplest thing. It's literally making a list, and if you're selected, you drop down the list. That's all this program does. It's barely worth calling a program. But I basically was like talking to the secretary for our department going, would this be useful? She's like, yeah, like, I was like, it's not really that annoying, but like, sure, it'd be nice. I was like, done. It's a tiny little problem that I can probably solve just because I just don't have the time to do a massive project. So I actually made a little sketch on just a piece of paper with what I thought it should look like. And this is the first time, like I made little apps before just for mobile phones, just while I was learning, but I didn't really do anything. It was just like using randInt and the random functions to generate like random greetings. So it would have like Guten Tag one time, and if you press next, it would just switch the greetings and everything else. So it was just like, randomly it didn't have any functional purpose other than just for my own amusement. And I think what like the default app is like a clicker counter, like, you press a button and the count goes up by 1. I added a reset button to it. So that's all I've done so far. So nothing really that useful. This was the first time where there was no template. I had this idea in my head of what it should look like and what it should do and how it'll do it. And I wrote it from scratch. It's only like 40 or 50 lines, like it's barely a program. But the thing is, it wasn't like I'm learning in Python. It's meant to be like a scripting language. It's not meant to have like a app icon that you can click and launch into a like Word or anything like that.
On your computer, or is this on your phone?
This is on the computer. But like, how you launch an application, this is not was meant to be like that. It's meant to be like, load up MS-DOS and do all that sort of thing. So the challenge was writing the program for doing the functional stuff, putting like buttons and a screen and a menu and all that stuff, because that was new to me. And also what I actually didn't know, if you could actually do this, and this is what I spent the last better part of 48 hours not sleeping trying to figure out, was how do you actually, like, what sort of cajoling do you have to do to make it into a functional standalone program? And this random thing worked. Like you can't actually find it on the instructions, but this random sequence of events led me to try a few steps and it worked. And I am overjoyed that such a stupidly simple program is actually working, that I've been on a high the entire day. Like the absolute day has been the highlight. It's probably going to be the highlight of the month. And I'm just like, yes, it just worked.
There's going to be one more highlight after it, which is when somebody else uses it. Because you said you made it for someone else, right?
Yeah, I've already sent it to them, so they just got to load it up tomorrow. Yeah. So, but the fact that I've gotten this far, I'm like, good. Like the thing is, it's not the most professionally programmed. I'm sure it's going to have bugs, even though it does like 3 things really.
Okay, it's a bug, not a feature. It's a feature, not a bug.
But yeah, that's been the highlight. But yeah, since last time, I think the low light, well, not the low light, but it was more depressing that I remember it being was I've had to do like COVID outreach. So obviously you see COVID patients in hospitals, and we are helping staff the ICU. So one of the hospitals that I'm at, basically one campus is not operating at all. All theaters are shut, and basically it's an overflow ICU. They've converted everything into a makeshift ICU. We've just got so many patients. And that's meant to be where all the COVID patients go, but they're so full that now they're transferring it to the other sites. And the other sites are so full that they've shut their sleep study lab, and that's an extended ICU. And that's so full that what would normally be an ICU patient gets sent to the ward with some special monitoring. But like, the staff have been upskilled as best as possible. This has all happened in the last couple of weeks, right? This is not what they're used to. So what they do is they pair an anesthetist up with a ICU nurse, and you go and do the rounds and see if there's any supports that you can help, or if there's any crises, or if there's any med calls and whatnot. We respond to that, just because, this is normally these people would be in intensive care. They're the most well of the sick bunch. So they just have to.
An interesting opportunity for hospitals to experiment with different models of care. Maybe some of those patients that are in ICU could actually be managed with really good monitoring.
No, not these ones.
Well, that's unfortunate.
These ones are very much like put it to you this way, I wrote like a Medium post on it just because I was just so depressed by the end of it. So we're currently seeing 2 distinct kind of populations. So one is either they're fully vaccinated or partially vaccinated, but they're elderly who have like lots of other.
I meant just the patients that are being pushed out to the ward.
These are the patients. These are the ones that are getting.
Oh, right. I see.
Yeah. Oh, they're not even the ones in there. So this is, that's how bad it is.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah. So you've got like the 80-ish year olds with lots of other stuff going on, who have been deemed that they're not suitable for intensive care or intubation, so breathing tubes and all that stuff and lines, because they'll never make it off. So they get sent to the wards because there's not much you can do for them in intensive care, and there's just such a demand that you just got to prioritize. And on the other side, you have the young guys who, actually it's almost predominantly guys who were actually, not a single female that I saw anyway, who basically were not for the vaccine. But one of the guys, he's basically, I think he sat up That's all he did. He was lying flat, then he sat up, and his oxygen saturation is like when you've got COVID and bad COVID, you're sitting at, so you and I are running at 95 to 100% oxygen levels. Like the COVID okay ones run at sort of low 90s, high 80s, you know. He sat up and it dropped to like 70.
Oh, and I suppose for context, there's a sharp drop off between the percentage and how much is oxygen in your blood, isn't there?
Yeah, yeah. It's, well, basically at 70, you should feel like you're choking to death. But there's a weird quirk with COVID where people don't feel that sensation, even though their oxygen's so low. And
kind
anyway,
of the virus.
Huh?
That's kind of the virus.
Yeah, it's really weird. Like there's people I've intubated that are actually blue, but then you go, are you feeling short of breath? And they go, no. Like, it just does not fit. I haven't seen it in any other condition. But anyway, it's so this guy, now he knows he's in trouble. So he's like, look, whatever you have to do, I'll do it. And he's very compliant and whatnot, and we're trying to treat him. But we had to transfer him into intensive care because there was a very good chance that he was going to need a ventilator soon. So you're seeing that distinct possibility. The really depressing thing is if you're 80 years old and you're not improving and you've already been deemed not for care, like not for escalation of therapy, normally you would go to palliative care. Like you just go, look, we're just going to try to keep you comfortable. The problem here is that there's just no limits. Like as in you can't, like one guy couldn't, like he literally rolled from one side of the bed to the other and became hypoxic, right? So you can't give them any good drugs because they're already on that knife's edge. And some of them are awake enough and they're like, oh, look, I know if I don't get better soon, I'm probably not going to make it, right? So at this point, you normally go, okay, look, if we know that and we've got treatment limitations, normally you'd send them home and look, spend time with your family, with your kids. But you can't do that because they've got severe COVID.
Yep.
Right? And no one can come visit them. So they're stuck in a room with an air filter with people coming and going in full like hazmat suits, essentially. Well, not hazmat, but like, you know, N95s. And they're also elderly who are deaf. So they can't understand what you're saying through the mask, even when you try to talk to them and try to keep them company. You know, I was like, it was actually really depressing. Last year when I did it, it was kind of like, look, bad stuff happens and we're unlucky and there's nothing we could have done and we're going to try and support you as much as we can. This time it was like half the people you go, this bit was preventable, right? And on the other half you go, you did everything right, you're unlucky because of your health, but we can't, just because of the way that things are at the moment, and also so that your family and whatnot don't get infected, there's not much more I can do to make your journey, like even if it's your last few days.
Sounds like the sad thing there that I sort of note is that normally palliative care is very good for end of life care. And I think that's something important and something that's, you know, we need to focus more time on rather than trying to do everything to save everybody. Well, to try to make things more comfortable as well. But it's sad that you can't actually do
okay. This is the worst part of this, right? So you go, all right, look, let's at least get you some nice food. Except COVID affects your smell, so it can't even taste properly. You're like, come on, man, like something nice.
Add more chili? No?
Yeah. Because it was literally like, well, the person who sent you the question has had an altered sensation of the for a little while as well. But anyway, so yeah, that was kind of like it got to me more than I thought it would, because I've done it a few times already. And it was just, you know, I wasn't expecting it to actually hit hard, but you kind of go, yeah, you literally can't do anything at all. Or you just go like, man, like, thank you for at least following the instructions now, but you know, you didn't have to be here.
Yeah.
You know, and that, like, it just feels, in a good way, I suppose it's not too many and the numbers are coming down. So at least most people are doing the right thing.
The other good thing is like Australia, even though, yes, there's a vocal minority, Australia's classically been a very high vaccine uptake country.
Yeah, and it's showing this time as well. But anyway, so that's been the sort of the highlight and the low light. I'm very glad that the programming thing came today, because that's like improved everything.
A plus point.
Yeah. All right. We're already at like 30 something minutes. So let's, are we going to do Eli 5 or should we just skip to random and be done with it?
It's a good question.
I reckon let's just, because the update with your voting stuff did take a while, let's just go to random and Next one, we'll do a proper episode, because otherwise this one's going to
That's
be
good.
huge. Okay, so this is your question, so you go with it.
Oh yeah, so something completely random. Um, one thing that I suppose I've been doing now is, since literally on a boat, there's not that much to do when you haven't got a good internet setup. Life is much simpler, and food becomes a good focus again.
And you can't Uber
and
Eats.
yeah, Uber Eats takes ages to sail over to where you are. Um, so yeah, food's been a lot very, very different. Previously, I didn't really have breakfast for the most of this year because it's kind of partially, intermittent fasting / intermittently broke / no time. So also known as no breakfast.
And then
But
your food normally, as we've discussed in the past,
exactly,
is
is
not
all about
exactly.
efficiency. How do you pack as many nutrients in as efficiently as possible?
You call it
And I'm like,
nutrients, I call it toxins by the time it's done with your process.
well, firstly, I'd like to reassure there were sardines on the boat. There were no bananas because bananas are, you're not allowed to take bananas on a boat. It's bad luck.
Really?
Yeah, though there is an actual explanation as well, because it makes all of your other fruit ripen.
What?
Bananas, they make fruit ripen. So
Why?
if you put bananas with all your other fruit, it makes all the other fruit get ripe faster.
Like what? There's some secret code in bananas. The bananas are whispering over.
Yeah,
Oh wait,
they release the gas. Like, what is it? Some sort of gas, ether or something or another. That's
really?
how
Like
you.
this is
Yeah,
actually a thing?
this is a thing. Like, you can use bananas to ripen other fruits.
Huh? You learn
It's a
something.
thing. But on a boat, when you're like off at sea for a while, if all your fruit gets ripe and goes off, that's unfortunate.
Wow. I had not like so. If other fruit ripen, does it ripen bananas?
No, I think bananas specifically release like a gas which speeds up ripening of a lot of fruits.
Huh. Well, you learned something new.
There you go.
I've got some
That was not
unripe
the random
mangoes. I should
question.
have bought some bananas.
But the random thing was, what's a new food you've started preparing? And for me, it was a simple thing of having fruit for breakfast. So for the longest time, I've never had fresh things because, that's inefficient. Like, you can't buy them once a month and have them frozen.
Says the guy who's been living in this apartment that has an IGA literally, and I do mean literally, 30 meters away from the front door.
Yeah, but that's like 29 meters too far, and you got to walk downstairs. It's not upstairs. It's very
What do
complicated.
you mean walk downstairs? The lift is super fast.
This is true, but then you got to walk from the lift to the IGA.
You know, the cafe that you go to is further away.
Yeah, but that's my regular spot, so that's okay. I mean, that's just logic.
Sure.
But yeah, so simply just having a bowl of mixed fruit with some muesli and yogurt. It's amazing. Simplest thing. Great way to start the day. So get up, maybe go for a swim, and then have breakfast as a fruit plate. That's a new thing for me.
So when you say started cooking, you meant
Well, some of the other cooking things were there as well. That was probably the most profound one.
all right. Well, for me, it was probably so like we're brown, so my mom taught me how to cook curry and all that stuff, but I never really bothered to make curry
I just learned
because
how to eat it at home, not how to make it yet.
no, like my parents like started teaching us both how to cook when we were like 5 and 10 and stuff. So we've always cooked. But it's like it's a few steps to do it, and I actually was looking for like butter chicken is just not a Bangladeshi thing. So, I was like, I wonder what the recipe is. And I accidentally stumbled across this website. I think it's called like Recipe Tin or something. I'll link it anyway. Basically, it's just called like the curry when you don't want to make a curry or something like that. And I was like, interesting. So it's literally hands-on time, maybe 10 minutes, full stop. And then it's ready in 20 minutes. So it basically cuts all the niceties out. So this is like the bare bones version where you just get some onions, add some curry powder, add some stuff, and you just do it, and it's done. And
is this like bare bones with bare flavor, or
no, like as in 90% there. Like this is like the Pareto principle of curries.
okay? I like it. The 80 nice.
Yeah, like as in totally. Like I was just like, I kind of avoided this because like carbs and I don't really agree, but like with brown rice, it's okay. But it was faster than any of the other stuff I was doing. So then I've started actually batch cooking curries again. Just like do a lot. And the thing with curries is, unlike all the other stuff you cook, like especially like cauliflower rice and the other stuff we were doing, once you freeze it and reheat it, it tastes disgusting. Whereas with curries, especially with brown rice, because it's got a bit of moisture in it, it actually tastes quite yum still. Like you can freeze it.
Doesn't you still freeze the rice as well? Just make like a lunchbox.
Yeah. So you can actually do it, and it's, especially if you get the steam pouch packs, you don't fully like, you know, the steamable rice things. So you only half cook them and you put them in. So then when it microwaves, it fully cooks. So it actually worked out really well. So yeah, it's probably not as random, but it was random for me because I have not cooked curries like regularly in a very long time, like decade plus. But it turns out like the 80-20 even in cooking is true. You just, there happens to be a recipe that just takes that 20% that does 80% of the work.
Nice.
Yeah. So totally random, looking for well, yeah, fits in with the podcast. All right. I'm gonna go with
Leave us a voicemail with what you've started making recently.
Yes. Wow, what a segue. So yes, if you've started cooking random stuff, please do leave us a voicemail, because
if it's better than sardines with bananas, please do let us know.
Everything is better than sardines and bananas.
Actually, sardines on a cheese platter. That's where it's at.
I don't think I've tried that, but anyway. Okay, my random question to you. What's something that's ordinary, old school back in the day that you never thought about, but now is like cool or hipster as?
Yeah, we're going to have to start that section again because I need to think about that.
Well, whilst you think about it, the reason I came up with that, you saw the question as well ages ago.
I missed that. I should have scrolled down a bit more.
So for me, anyway, it's like today, so there's like, you know, I remember the old trains, like the old, it looks like the New York subway ones, like the old metal boxes. Like they're all metal boxes, but this was like, you know, the silver on the outside, corrugated steel kind of look. It was very industrial looking. This is when we were back in uni. They were like 3 generations old train, and they used to always get graffitied because it looks like an industrial slate to graffiti on. So I went to this place called Easy's, which I've known about for years, but I never went to. So it's on top of like, it's like a 3-story or 4-story apartment block. And on the top of this, they've stuck 3 of these trains and they've turned it into a burger restaurant.
Yeah, nice.
And like, it's just like you sit on the, you know how some trains you have the big section. So it's like 3 people facing each other, and then you have like the single seater on one side. So that's the layout. So you've got 2 single seater and like a thing, and you've got like a carriage, like a walkway in the middle that you can walk through. They've obviously gotten rid of all the rails and whatnot, but that's the actual seating of it. And I was just thinking, going, man, I saw it and I had to take a photo. I did a little video. I was like, how many hundreds, if not thousands of times have I sat on probably that exact train? Because like, how many train trips have I done when I was in uni? And it was never cool. But now I'm just taking photos of a train, you know? And the interesting,
you become a train, you kind of like a Biden now. Train watching.
Huh?
You're train spotting.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing they did was to get up there, you walk in, and the floor entrance is also part of the restaurant. So they've got a few tables there. So I was meant to go last week, but I couldn't get a booking in the train. So I was like, no, I've got to do it proper. And you walk up these flight of stairs, and the flight of stairs, instead of going with like, let's decorate a theme, what they did was, you can see that there's actually a back entrance to the alleyway. So they must have just left it open and just said, hey, come do whatever. Because it's just graffitied, like as if you're in like, you know, those really grungy trains where every surface has been graffitied. The entire 5 flights of stairs that you have to walk up is just graffiti all around you. And like, normally you'd be like, it's a bit dingy, but then you're like, wow, this feels like I'm back in the train in the early 2000s.
I really feel the rundown graffiti. It's nice.
Yeah, I mean, those trains were kind of like even from the outset, you kind of go, yeah, you just look like you're, you know, lumps of iron stuck together. Like they're very industrial, very kind of that sort of, you know, post-apocalyptic vibe sort of trains. So yeah, so that's why I bring that up, is back in the day, I would never have thought to think of them as interesting. But after today, I was like, that was an experience sitting in, like, I mean, yeah, sitting and eating a burger on a train is pretty cool in its own right, but it capitalized on just the everyday things that I never noticed. Yeah.
Well, the thing that jumped to my mind is kind of more tech based.
Yeah.
And it's vinyl
Okay.
records. Because it's kind of like one of those things where nowadays the only people who use vinyl and listen to vinyl records and things are the really, really hardcore people, but it's considered the cool thing again. Whereas back in the day, that was just the way to do it. Like there was no,
except
like
for
Spotify was not an option. Like you just listened on vinyl.
actually, yeah, that's true. Like a few years ago, I went to the US and the Airbnb had a vinyl record player that was just like part of the prop, but they left a couple of records out, and they're all new records. So I had like Daft Punk's last album, and I put it on. It was just the novelty of it was pretty cool.
Yeah. And I remember seeing this as well. I think it was either a Kickstarter project or something or another. But basically now vinyl players have become like super high-end, amazing things. And they're basically converting the old ones, adding a bunch of new features to it, but making it super cool. It's, oh, here's your app controlled vinyl player, but it's for vinyl.
Yeah. So one of the interesting things is, yeah, Bang& Olufsen, the brand, like, you know, high-end audio stuff, they actually started so their latest speakers, what they're doing is they're making it modular, so you can actually upgrade the tech inside, so you can actually take out the mother, like the circuit board, and put new stuff in as technology comes. So because their basic thing is our speakers are that good that you love the sound, you might just need new tech. But simultaneous to that, they actually said, bring in your old Bang& Olufsen record player, and we've actually upgraded the individual components for that old thing from 30 years ago that'll breathe new life. So you've got the new needle, new stuff, new tape belt that's much stronger. We can upgrade the motors. There you go. So you bring it in, and they refurbish it to like top spec, and they've brought out a new model, but it transfers some of the tech across.
Huh. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
I think tech is one of those interesting things where a lot of times old tech just like becomes, oh, it's a cool old retro thing. And then it gets its own life of, it's cool.
I don't think mini disc is coming back though.
We can do it. Bring back the mini CD. That was awesome. I loved it.
What? Had like 20.
You know the CDs that were like, 10 minutes worth of play on it.
Like
but they look so cool.
Yeah, I'm not on you on this one.
They were not functional, but they looked so cool.
Like, what are they for though? Like, you can't do anything. Like vinyl, at least it's got like a physical spinny thing. It's like by the time you get to mini CD, you're like, just use your phone.
Same for vinyl.
Well, actually, the other thing with vinyl is that there's actually, I think it's even today or tomorrow, like bands are actually releasing their music as a vinyl release limited edition, because the rest of it, they're not bothering with CDs because like it comes out to streaming, and who has a CD player anymore? So there's no CD release, but there's a vinyl release, and there's Spotify. I just found that really interesting because there's a band called Flight Facilities. And if you go on their website, it's like pre-order vinyl or pre-save on Spotify. Those are the two options.
There's no CD option nowadays. Yeah, makes sense. Like, can't think of the last time I had a CD player.
Yeah, or like, I still don't understand why people sell DVDs. I'm like, I don't have it. I think I have a DVD player, but I've never used it.
You got a PlayStation, right?
Xbox, yeah.
Yeah, that can play things.
Yeah, I think it can.
Possibly.
Yeah, mine's the old one though. My old one has disc, because I think the new PlayStations you can get one with a disc player and one without. Because it's all just the PlayStation App Store now. Yeah. Anyway, well, that's well for a mini-sode. That's a very long mini-sode again.
Sounds like a maxi-sode. All right.
All right. So remember, like, subscribe, and all that jazz, or follow podcast. I don't know what you're meant to do.
And voice a message.
Yes. Send us a message. Or if you want to send us an email as well, we love feedback. It's podcast@photosbyraffi.com. The links in will be at the thing below. Next time we should have a proper episode or a guest. There's a few guests that we've been working on. Some would be pretty interesting. So I'll see if I can tee it together, and catch you next time. Oh, and also last thing, if you could leave us a review on either Apple Podcasts or any podcast app, that would be great. Supposedly it helps. I don't know how podcasts work yet, so
All right, and we will find out. It will definitely help.
yes. Okay. All right. Until next time. Bye.
So